Move outside foot back level with hip bone. Keep hind leg upright until the flank is cleared. Let the brisket fall through and the sheep roll back towards you. Use your free hand to pull the skin tight. Clear from the stifle to the hock, then from the stifle to the flank. Shear over the top of the hip joint to backbone, lifting the cogs to follow the shape of the sheep. Clear wool from the hock, hamstring and under the tail. Shear from tail and along the backbone. Shear the top knot. Be very careful around eyes and ears. Step forward with the outside foot level with the flank. Place the inside foot between the animal's hind legs. Step forward with your outside foot and place in line on floor with the inside foot. Ensure you step forward, not to the outside. Use both your knees and feet to control the sheep. Elbows also control the sheep's head. At the end of each blow, kick the sheep back with your inside foot to turn the sheep towards the chute. Position the sheep for the long blow, keeping its tail on the centre line. For the start of the long blow, keep the sheep on its backbone. Keep your toes pointed in and under the sheep's shoulder to keep the sheep up off the floor. Step over and place your inside foot beside the sheep's rump. Keep the head down until reaching the wither, then lift the head onto your knee. Shear from the flank to under the foreleg to set up the angle for the rest of the long blow. Shear a full comb over the backbone, finishing under the ear. Move the inside foot back alongside the rump. Step over with outside foot and place behind the sheep's legs with the toe beside the tail. Let the sheep lay against your legs. Keep the sheep bowed out. Take small steps back to finish. Shear from the shoulder to the flank to set the angle for the last side. Keep the comb full. Take care when clearing the hamstring. Pull handpiece out of gear.
In this segment, we're going to go over setting up the handpiece, oiling the handpiece and putting the comb and cutter on. First of all, I'm going to go and just go over the components of a handpiece so everyone knows what we're talking about. First of all, we've got the ferrule, and that's attached to the handpiece by a thread. Then we go to the back joint. This is what they call the back joint cover. We've got the back joint spring. You can see that metal spring in there. Then we go around, there's two cogs in there. We go down, this is called the handle, that's the main part of the handpiece. Inside this hole here, we've got the ball and the ball race. We go up a little bit further. This is what we call the tension nut. Inside the tension nut, we've got a safety clip or a spring, safety spring, and then we call that the sleeve. Inside that sleeve we've got the giggle pin, which goes down to what we call a fork yoke, that main piece that sits inside of the handle. There's a spring in there holding that giggle pin in. This side we've got the post, and that sits inside a cup. The cup sits inside what we call the yoke, and that's this main bit here without these attachments there. Up the front of that fork yoke that fits inside that is a set of chicken feet. On the back of the chicken feet we've got two sets of pins. You can see them on both sides there. That's just pins that fit into the front of the cutter, and these are your safety pins. The safety pins are there for obviously one reason. If those top pins come out, they're there, so the bottom pins hold the cutter still on the comb without it having any flying off. So what we do now, the handpiece is ready to set up. We've finished last run. What we want to do is clean this comb bed off. The reason for that is if we end up with grease on that comb bed or a little bit of grit, when we go to put the comb on, it won't sit flush. So you've got a false bedding on that comb bed. So we've got a comb brush here. You'll see a lot of them have got this metal bit in there, and that's for when the grease gets a little bit hard on the yolk and around the chicken feet, you can scrape it off. But we just brush that grease off. And then on the back here, we've just got to be a little bit careful here when we brush, because they will unscrew if we brush that side of it and screw up if we brush that side. So we want to try to screw up, brush so the screws stay going up. Otherwise, if we brush the other way, they'll end up rolling off down the board or down the grating. Clean all that off. Now, next of all, what I like to do is to go and set the... we'll put the comb on first before we put the cutter on. Now, one of the main reasons why we put the comb on first is because if we go to put the cutter on first and we've got a heap of tension on there, when we go to put the comb on, if we put the comb on second, I'll just tighten that up a little bit more, you'll see the comb's going on at a different angle to the comb bed. So when we do it up, you'll think you'll have that tight, but when you start shearing in the tension, that comb will loosen off and it'll end up coming off on the board. What we do now is we back the tension off. We've got the cutter, remembering that we said there's two sets of holes. The top holes, the pin holes, have got to go into the pin holes on the chicken feet. We slide your cutter underneath the chicken feet. You can see I try to pull them chicken feet up, so I'll have to back the tension off a little bit. Slide it underneath there. Put both those chicken feet pins in the cutter holes and hold it down with your thumb. If you don't hold it down with your thumb, sometimes that'll fall out like that, and you'll do your tension up and you can see that pin is not in the hole. So we put it in the hole, tighten it up so it's finger tight. You don't have to over tighten it, just for setting it up. Now, what we've got to do here now is to set our lead. And the lead, to set your lead, is what we call lead is the gap between your scallop, which is that scalloped out bit there, and the tip of your cutter. And what we try to do as an average figure, we try to set it about a match thickness thick between the bottom of your scallop to the tip of the cutter. So you can see that one's hanging right over, so we've got to pull that comb out. So we turn it over, and we slide it up the comb bed, finger tight again, and we adjust it to there. You could probably come out just a wee bit more. So we do it the same thing again. Now on a comb, most combs have got 13 teeth. So there'll be 6 this side and 6 that side of the middle tooth. And I usually go by the middle tooth when I set up the lead. So it's a matchstick thickness. It's a little bit of an indication. Sometimes you might use a little bit more lead, sometimes you might use a little bit less. Say in good shear and long-wooled sheep, you'd use a little bit more lead, and in tighter, smaller hoggetty sheep, lambs, you might use less lead. But it's one of them things that will, over your course of your shear and career, you'll try and you'll soon find out what suits best. The next we go to the throw, and what we call the throw is the cutter moving from that side right over to that side. Now, sometimes that ball will get stuck in the ball race, and so what we got to do is just put our thumb on the cogs like that and just turn it like that. And we go from side to side. Now, I usually look at the centre tooth, and you can see how that centre tooth is just hanging over there. That cutter is hanging just over the centre tooth. If we go the other way to the throw the other side, you can see how there's a fairly big gap in there. So what we want to do is to move the comb over that way, that centre tooth over that way. So the comb's got to be slidden over on the bed that way. So we turn it back over. Slide her over. Needs to be a little bit more. Just a tad more. And you can see that that cutter is even when I slide it across to that side. And that'll give you your throw. If that's not even, if I move it right across, to there, you'll see what happens here when I go to put your throw. That cutter is hardly touching that tooth up there, compared to it's hanging right over that tooth, nearly over here. That's spot on. Now, it's your time to do the comb screws up now. And you've just got to be a little bit wary of doing it on your leg. We like to put it on a hard surface, because if that slips out of there, you'll go straight into your leg. We just tighten them up. Once we get to there, I just like to give them a little bit of a tweak. One little tweak. Now, we go to oiling the handpiece up. Now, first of all, if we put tension on here, if we go to put oil on these parts, the metal will be up against metal, and you'll put oil on there and the oil won't go to where you want the oil to run. So we just leave the tension off to where we first had it to put the cutter on, so it's nice and easy. And grab an oil can. We put a little bit on that giggle pin and cup there. There's all the moving parts. Just a little bit there. A little bit there. Just run a little bit across your comb. Then we go to put some in on the ball race. You've got to be a little bit careful that you can see the ball race in there. It's at that angle. When the cutter goes over that side, it's at that angle. Now, if I went to put oil in there now, I'm right-handed, I go to put it in there, and you can see it'll clean miss where you really want it to go on that ball. So either you've got to look in there and put a little bit on, or have your cutter in the centre of the comb, and you can see that ball is sitting in the centre of the ball race hole. So we put a little bit of oil on there, a little bit of oil on your cogs. There's moving parts there, so we put a little bit of oil there, and just to drop down your ferrule. We don't want to over oil this too much, because what happens, the oil will run out of here and come on the back of your flock or your handle, and it'll end up getting real slippery there. We try to oil these cogs every time we change a cutter, or usually every half an hour. The same as that, and in your ferrule, your ball race, every time you change a cutter, you re-oil everything. So now we go to set the tension. A good way of getting the right tension, if we put too much tension on the handpiece, what will happen, it will get hot, and it's like having a haircut with hot clippers. It'll end up burning the sheep, and you'll end up fighting the sheep. So what we do is a good idea is just to grab the tension nut like that. Make sure you grab it firm enough that you don't drop your handpiece, and just turn it until the weight of the handpiece is on that tension nut. And that usually turns at about a quarter of a turn. So like that. And that should give you around the right tension. So now we go over to the stand and we're ready to put it on and start shearing. After I've dragged this sheep out, I'm going to set up the belly position, and to do that you've got to have your toes pointed out. So it makes that hole that we were talking about so you can get the sheep in there. Once the sheep's in there, then that's to get pressure on the animal, then we just stand back with our knees. Stand back, and that straight away our knees come in and it puts pressure on our animal. I'll just go through shearing this sheep without using this left hand to control the animal. The whole time you use your feet to keep pressure, and your knees are in, keeping pressure on the head of the animal. When we go to walk up the neck, you can do it all with your legs. Take the top knot off. Here's where we use our left hand a little bit to get that head up, but then we control the head with our elbow. This means we can use that left hand to stretch and manipulate this neck as we go up. To go around the back of the ear, we can still use the back of the hand to control the sheep's head, but you've still got your fingers free to manipulate around the horns, the ear, any wool around here. We go down to this leg. We've got control of the sheep with our elbow. It's not that left hand at all. We can come in here, use that left hand then to hold that leg up as we spin around onto the long blow. All the foot movement on the long blow is all setting up your blows. We come to the end of the long blow and we're turning that leg in, so it's lifting that sheep up. It's not actually your arm that's lifting the sheep up, it's that left leg. Then it's just a matter of lifting the head up. Come down to this last side and you can see here we've got the pigeon toe effect, and that's keeping the pressure on your animal and keeping it up. If I drop these feet out now, you lose the pressure on the animal. If you put them in, you've got all that weight off the ground, so you don't actually have to pick it up. As we come down this last side, that left hand's free to manipulate this neck, move in and out the wrinkles. Using that left hand just to hold that leg up as we come down. And then as we step over, that left hand's free for the whole time we go down this last side. Each time we do blows down this last side, if your blow's out there, you move back with your outside leg, and as you come like this, your weight transfers to your outside leg, so you've got to move your inside leg all the way down the last side. And you can really see the importance in using your legs when you're shearing.
Okay, today I just want to go through the importance of your footwork and also what I will call my free hand. It affects your sheep a lot and the position of your sheep, so it's very important to get these things right. I've got a wether here, so I'm just going to sit it up and pretend I'm doing the belly. Using my feet, I have my feet spread out so the sheep lays back into my legs. I've bent my knees down to clamp the sheep. Now I'll just straighten them up. Okay, taking off the belly, I'll use my free hand down underneath this shank or front leg to open that brisket up and run your blows down that belly. With the wether, we want to be able to run your blow down and stop, break that wool out. The next blow comes down, around, and running at the pizzle from the side. We must go over that pizzle from the side and also be able to see it. If we can see it, you won't run into it. Come up over the pizzle from the side, down. When we're getting down to the base of the belly, again, we will use our free hand to pull that skin up into your comb, as you can see. with your belly. To run out the inside leg, I transfer my weight onto the outside and shift my inside leg to the flank of the sheep and also bend my knee. Out the leg, using my free hand, I keep this leg straight by just pushing in behind that knuckle. Around. Now my free hand comes over and pulls the skin around that crutch area, back the other way. When you get onto the other side leg, free hand goes down onto your outside leg. I turn my sheep in towards the chute on our circle of position. Out the leg, coming in, I use my free hand to make sure all those fribs are over, so our comb will come in underneath them. The second blow on this hind leg, I like to turn my foot out and use my free hand to pull that skin nice and flat so I can get a deep blow into this hind leg. From then, I try and use knuckle on knuckle. As you can see where that sheep leg bends, I will put my knuckle on that knuckle and be grabbing the skin, pushing down. Once we shear that hind leg, that undermine, getting close to that undermine, my inside leg will just turn out slightly and bring it back, which will roll your sheep over as such. To do that undermine, my free hand, I will help roll that sheep over